It was early June in which I chose to start my journey to the Yukon, an 882-kilometer trip up the long and unforgiving Dempster Highway to the Arctic Ocean. June is also the month that brings the most warmth to the region, and as the snowpack melts and winter ice roads disappear, the ferries on the Peel and Mackenzie rivers can once again resume shuttling goods and people up to the northern village of Tuktoyaktuk. Although I began this trip alone, I made some new cycling friends along the way. This is my story. Well, I have finally arrived at the Dempster Highway. Pretty excited to be here, and I've already got my groceries down in Dawson City. That's about 40 kilometers from here. One of the key things that you're going to need to do is, obviously you're going to need enough food, but if you go to the Northwest Territories Travel Information Center, they've got they'll allow you to drop off a box of food, and they will find somebody to shuttle it up to Eagle Plains, which is 400 kilometers from here. So that's going to take me maybe at least 5 days to get there, at which point I'm going to be running low on food. So yeah, I've got a food cache sitting down the highway already to pick up, and after that I'll have enough food to get to Fort McPherson and then continue on to Inuvik. The first 80 kilometers or so of the Dempster Highway passes through Tombstone Territorial Park, and I find myself wanting to explore and interact with absolutely everything. Beautiful ice floes melting on the river and vivid flowers growing under 24 hours of sunlight. I kept thinking to myself, I wish I had more time. The Ogilvy mountain range runs from Engineer Creek all the way to Eagle Plains. Typically it's a dry area with no water sources for 80 kilometers. Loading up on water before the long hill climb is essential, so I packed 7 liters with me up to the top. At the summit of the Ogilvy Ridge, it began to rain. Oncoming vehicles would often stop and ask if we were okay and give road condition updates from Eagle Plains. The news was always bad. Deep mud, fog, and vehicles sliding off of the road. Each news report from the next oncoming vehicle always seemed to be getting worse. In preparing for this trip, I had removed my fenders to get wider 45mm tires on my bike for the anticipated poor conditions. Without fenders, the mud was now piling up on my front brakes, rendering them useless, and my chain would jam up so I was unable to access all my gears. I stopped several times and poured water on the mud to try and improve the situation, but any gains were short-lived. It was cold and windy that evening, and we camped on the side of the road and started a fire to keep warm. Tomorrow things would be better, and the rain would subside and the road to Eagle Plains would slowly dry up. I have arrived at Eagle Plains. It's been a hell of a long day. My drivetrain sounds like a squeaky sewing machine. It was exciting to be departing Eagle Plains, as there was a 400-meter elevation drop to the Eagle River Bridge. The Eagle River weaves through the landscape like a snake on its long journey to the ocean. It felt really good to be cycling today, as the distance to the Arctic Circle drew closer and closer. Well, I arrived at the Arctic Circle and this is on my 5th day. It has been so rewarding to be here. A few more days and I guess I'll be in Fort McPherson, but today I'm just going to aim for another 40 kilometers. I'm going to be arriving in Rock Creek Campground, which is supposed to be one of the nicest campgrounds on the Dempster Highway. So beautiful spot to be, great spot for lunch. And but anyways, I got to push on and I got to get over the mountain range here today. The Arctic Circle is the lowest latitude at which the sun remains above the horizon for a full 24 hours during the summer solstice in June, and stays below the horizon for a full 24 hours during the winter solstice in December. At this latitude, there are short winter days and long summer days with periods of 24 hours of sunlight around the summer solstice. I pushed forward that evening through the Richardson Mountain Pass and arrived at the Rock Creek Campground. It was beautiful as described, and the following days would provide more epic scenery. Sometimes it felt like you were cycling through an oil painting with all the colors on the landscape. It seems more often than not that my fondest memories of the Dempster are stopping for lunch and really being able to soak up the scenery and trying to spot elusive birds that we could hear but remained hidden in the grass. And yet other times I was just happy to enjoy the warmth of the sun beside a river without bugs or rain. Well, we arrived at the Peel River ferry crossing and the water level is too high right now, so that's as far as this ferry can get to land. So unfortunately there's a big lineup of people and nobody can cross. So we got lucky, we managed to find one of the locals that has a boat. He's willing to shuttle our bicycles across. So we'll be in Fort McPherson for lunch. The Tuktoyaktuk Peninsula has the greatest concentration of pingos in the world, with a total of 1,350 pingos. In a region near the Beaufort Sea, which is quite flat, pingos dominate the skyline. Rising from 5 to 36 meters, they are all in various stages of growth and collapse. Ibyuk pingo, the highest, continues to grow at about 2 centimeters per year and is estimated to be at least 1,000 years old. Unique to areas of permafrost, pingos have formed here thanks to numerous lakes in the Tuktoyaktuk Peninsula. Well, I've arrived in Tuktoyaktuk and right at they call it the point out here, and right on the Beaufort Sea. It's still covered in ice, and I think it's about June the 19th today. But what an awesome time to finally, get here and see this sign. It's been 4,500 kilometers of cycling since I came from Vancouver on April 25th. So happy to be here and explore this village. There's about 900 people here, and they're not really used to tourists yet either, because the highway's only existed for about 5 years. So
They're always curious to see people from out of town, and they're quite friendly too. So anyway, today I'm going to explore the village and try to keep warm as best I can. So awesome feeling.
I'd actually arrived in Tuktoyaktuk on the 19th of June, and the Beaufort Sea was still covered in ice. I always wanted to stay for the summer solstice, so that would be a special experience for me, as there was already 24 hours of sunlight in June. So over the course of 3 days, I relaxed and explored the village. Tuktoyaktuk has only had a year-round road access since 2017, so the locals still seem surprised to see some tourists. The village had had an interesting history, with massive investment from oil and gas companies in the 1970s to being a dew-line station during the Cold War. Remnants of this lively past still remain, and locals will tell you that back then everything had to be flown in.